Hello and welcome to the Coaxum Report. This is Terry Coaxum, and I'm super excited. We're going to be joined today by the president and CEO of the Brooklyn Chamber, Randy Pierce. Randy, how are you?
Hey, how are you? Good to see you.
Good to be seen. Good to be seen. It is truly a pleasure. I finally got you on the show.
We've been talking about it for a long time.
Yes, we have. Yes, we have. So the Coaxum Report is here on the marketplace. You can also catch us on OurTV.network. You can catch us on Android, on Amazon Fire TV, and it's also going to be rebroadcast on Tempo, and it's all over the world. So don't be surprised if your friends from the Virgin Islands or your friends from Jamaica, Trinidad call you, or even from Africa and tell you they saw you on this show. I'll
That's
be
so
getting
good.
out of that.
Good.
So, Randy, I wanted to have you come on. I know you just came back from the Virgin Islands, so we're definitely going to talk about that. But just want to talk about, what you're doing, all the wonderful things you're doing over at the Brooklyn Chamber, some of the various best practices and big ideas for our small business, and some solutions. I want to end with some solutions. I know you got a limited time with me today. So I want to tell people, who is Randy Pierce and what are you doing in the County of Kings, which are 2.8 million people, 250 dialects, and 69 square miles.
Right.
So what's going on?
Oh wow. Well, we have a lot to cover in a short period of time, so let's
Absolutely.
let's jump right in. I mean, first, thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
And Terry, you and I know each other for many years, and I've been doing this work for almost 30 years, and all almost exclusively here in Brooklyn.
Yes.
As you know, I'm a passionate Brooklynite. Brooklyn's a very special place. Wouldn't trade it, my growing up here and spending most of my life here, for anything in the world. We have 62,000 businesses across the borough.
That's right.
It is, as you mentioned, 2.8 million people would make us the fourth largest city in the United States if we were our own city.
That's right.
COVID, and I don't want to talk, make this a COVID story, but, COVID was a unique type of crisis.
That's right.
That, in some ways, helped Brooklyn to rise to preeminence in terms of economic recovery. And I'll explain that, briefly, because the type of crisis that COVID was very disadvantageous to a place like Manhattan, that its economy was reliant on office workers coming back to office buildings, right?
That's right.
Including the small businesses that operated in Manhattan, expecting that customer base to come to them.
That's right.
COVID was a type of crisis where, if you were working from home, where were you most likely to shop? In your backyard.
Right.
So in some cases, it enabled our commercial corridors to kind of bounce back sooner than other places. The other thing I will say, downtown Brooklyn, which has come a long way in the last 20 years, was a mixed use financial district. It was a mixed use commercial district, unlike the financial district or Midtown. So there was a residential base in place that kind of mitigated some of the challenges. Yes, we had the court systems, and the courts were closed down, so there were less workers coming to downtown Brooklyn. But the reality was, we had anchor tenants like Trader Joe's and City Point that were actually bringing people into downtown to shop. And then we had the residential base that was already there to help them shop. So there was a lot of factors that helped Brooklyn to kind of bounce back. In addition to the fact that just over the last 20 to 25 years, Brooklyn has really gone through a tremendous renaissance in terms of its economy. It's still a small business economy. 84% of the businesses here in Brooklyn have less than 10 employees.
Yeah.
But people don't realize this. The fastest growing sector of Brooklyn's economy is the tech sector.
Really?
Yeah, little tech. New tech startups have outpaced, over a 4-year period, even San Francisco. And
wow.
Yeah, and we're proud of that. In addition to what we'll call sort of creative sector sort of businesses, whether it's in digital marketing or advertising, healthcare and biotech. Look, healthcare is still the largest sector of Brooklyn's economy by employment, but we've really seen a shift in the economic base here in Brooklyn, and the Chamber's been proud to be able to kind of be part of that.
That's right.
And on the small business side, really, I like to say, we became a 55 neighborhood chamber of commerce. So, we are out and about, this, Because of COVID, we launched a couple of programs that really were focused on meeting businesses where they were at, like
Mm-hmm.
sort of walking the commercial corridors, knocking on doors, establishing trust, and really connecting to businesses, to the support that was available throughout. And it evolved throughout the crisis, and now helping a lot of new businesses to start up in our various neighborhoods. So we've got a lot happening here. The one thing I will mention in terms of new sort of and exciting sort of initiatives, we do a lot around equity. We have our own CDFI, commercial district financing,
Right.
CDFI, right? And we do a lot in terms of finance, but we launched our own sort of retail store to
Ah,
advance equity. It's called the Brooklyn Made Store,
all right.
and it launched in late May of this year. It's housed at Industry City, so in Building 5. And the mission behind it, because it's a social mission-driven store, is to really help independent makers, designers, and small business owners who have product get more exposure.
That's
In
great.
many cases, these are makers that maybe never even had product on shelf.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the makers come from communities of color. And we launched in May. We're doing pretty well. 4 weeks ago, we launched in advance of the holiday season an e-commerce platform. So brooklynmadestore.com. So
Ah.
you could peruse the products online. You could also purchase online. But of course, if you come to Industry City, you can get to see the store, the brick and mortar store. And the beauty is you walk in the store, it's apparel, it's packaged food goods, it's jewelry, it's home goods like candles and dish towels and
Mm-hmm.
coasters.
Mm-hmm.
We have an art gallery. It's called the Corner Gallery, where we rotate the artists, emerging artists in Brooklyn. So we've rotated that about 5 times since we've opened up the store.
Wow.
Just had an art opening last night, partnering with the Brooklyn Waterfront Artists Coalition, BWAC, and we have pet treats and things like that. All of the products are Brooklyn inspired.
That's what's
All of the
up.
makers are from Brooklyn,
That's what's up.
and we put the story of the maker right next to the products on the shelf. So when you
Nice.
walk in, you know who you're supporting when you make a purchase. And this is not a pop-up. This is not on consignment. We run it like a regular retail operation. We buy, which means that the vendors, the makers get paid, and we buy the inventory and we sell it. If it doesn't,
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. And
if
that's
it
a great model. That's a great model because a couple of things are happening here. One, you're inspiring those individuals that would not otherwise have an opportunity to get their products out there. And then full disclosure, I had the opportunity to train 14 entrepreneurs, the Brooklyn Entrepreneurship Academy for the chamber. And these amazing women are now able to put their candles and their teas and different things in these stores, and they didn't have that opportunity before. So I mean, this is really great. I had an opportunity to actually go and cruise around in the store. It was pretty impressive. So I encourage you, now that there's a website. What's the website again? Randy?
BrooklynMadeStore.com.
BrooklynMadeStore.com. It's holiday time. It's a great opportunity for you to give some unique gifts to individuals that you know and love. And so I encourage you to go on and do that. But the other thing, Randy, I mean, that's a lot of great stuff that you just mentioned. But more importantly, you guys seem to always have your hands on the pulse of the community. And I want to talk a little bit about that because I tell my businesses, yes, COVID did put a black eye on a lot of things, and it showed us that there was a lot of inequity in a lot of different neighborhoods where, broadband wasn't available for the children who had to now be home and use their computers. There was a lot of things not happening. But one thing that you guys were able to do was keep the doors open.
Right.
And I think that that's pretty exciting. I want to talk a little bit more about that because Industry City in itself is an amazing space. I had the opportunity to bring the governor from the Virgin Islands here to kind of tour Industry City, and I want you to talk a little bit about the Virgin Islands and your wonderful time you had there, and then more importantly, because we don't have a lot of time, but I want you to tell our businesses, what are some of the barriers that you're getting in Brooklyn and that we're facing in our small business, and then we're going to give them some solutions because I want to make sure we're ending with solutions and best practices. But Brooklyn Made is a best practice that truly is a good idea.
Yeah, and you and the Brooklyn Entrepreneur Academy, the inaugural class that you led, contributed to the story of success this year. I mean, we had 18 entrepreneurs, 14 of which completed your program.
Hmm.
Yes, several of them, and I think you mentioned four, have product in our store too. So
Yeah,
it's kind of an ecosystem
that's
that's
right.
kind of worked. We had a pitch competition, $50,000 in funding that
That's right.
we led, and that's what it's about.
That's right.
And that supports the creativity in Brooklyn, right? And these were BIPOC women.
That's
In
right. And amazing women, let me add. We had nonprofit business as well as for-profit business. And I keep in touch with these multimillionaires is what I I'll call them my multimillionaires. So we stay in touch. And I think the thing about the program for those of you the BEA program is that I have an opportunity to follow them for a year to kind of really make sure that they're going to be successful. So whatever hiccups they're having, then I'm
right.
able to kind of coach them through it, me and my team. And so that's an amazing opportunity to see their success and their growth. It's truly it's like your baby, right? You take your baby and you see a baby grow up, you're like, yes.
So
Right.
let me jump into some of um, the challenges, but also the opportunities. So
Yes.
some of what we've observed is that Brooklyn's a big place. You mentioned 72 square miles, slightly smaller than St. Croix. I learned that too, by the way.
Really?
Geographically, yes. But it really truly is a neighborhood by neighborhood story, right? Like
Yes, it is.
not all the neighborhoods have recovered to the same degree, and even before COVID, not all of our communities were advancing at the same pace
That's
uh,
right.
as other communities. To some degree, we have sort of North Brooklyn, which has boomed over the last 2 decades. We've seen
Mhm.
tremendous transformation in North Brooklyn. Communities like Greenpoint, like Dumbo, like Williamsburg, to some degree Bushwick, and then you've got Southern Brooklyn communities, Eastern Brooklyn communities, where I'm from, Canarsie, that have not advanced uh, as the way we had hoped. So they need a little more TLC,
That's
and
right.
Chamber's been providing some TLC in places like Canarsie through our Avenue NYC program, where we do merchant organizing, and we launched a merchant association on Rockaway Parkway a year ago. Um, and then you've got Central Brooklyn. Now, Central Brooklyn is an interesting place, right? Like places like Bed-Stuy and Crown
Crown
Heights.
Heights, where I'm from.
Right, and there's been a tremendous renaissance in new entrepreneurship in those communities,
Hmm.
right?
Yes.
That hasn't been driven by the same sort of residential change and
Right.
displacement as we've seen in Northern Brooklyn. So it is this very interesting kind of sort of geographic analysis
Hmm.
that we kind of undertake. I'll focus on Bed-Stuy Crown Heights because I think there's a lot of good instructive stories there. There's Tompkins Avenue in Bed-Stuy has a merchant
Yep.
association,
Tamma. Hmm.
TAMA,
Hmm.
and Bridge Street Development Corporation, our partner,
Hmm.
Greg Anderson and Oma Holloway. We work, they bring us in to be value added. They do
That's
amazing
right.
work there. They run the most successful open streets program probably in the city on Tompkins Avenue. And any given Sunday, from spring to early fall, you'll have 3,000 people sort of coming out.
Hmm.
And we call that strip Black Girl Magic Way, because if you look at the many of the businesses that are there, most of them sort of newer businesses, they're run by Black women.
That's
Um,
right.
and it's the type of renaissance that we want to replicate in other communities. We're seeing a little bit of that in Crown Heights too. Nostrand Avenue, North Nostrand corridor, new restaurants, new bars, new other businesses. Some longtime businesses that are expanding, that had never thought about expanding, like Allen's Bakery, for example.
Yeah, yeah, Alan's
Um,
Bakery.
so I think there's a lot of good opportunity for those who, number one, want to take a little bit of a risk, but also for those that are sort of true to their roots in these neighborhoods, right? Like the folks that have set up businesses are people who, and this is what we're happy to see, are people that are from that community and are seeking to really invest in their home community, in their home
Absolutely.
neighborhood. So that's a good story. A little different than North Brooklyn, which North Brooklyn's seen a lot of change, and we've seen a lot of wonderful new people have come in, new entrepreneurs. That's where we see some of that tech growth that I mentioned earlier. When I say little tech, it's people who run tech startups like out of the coffee shop. They're not,
That's right.
they're not the Amazons or the Metas or the Googles, right? They're new tech entrepreneurs. Although we have New Lab at the Brooklyn Navy Yard, which is a tech accelerator that's very successful at NYU Future Lab. Southern Brooklyn's got a little ways to come, Terry. So I'm a Southern Brooklyn kid. I'm still live in Southern Brooklyn. And if you took south and then go sort of east, Canarsie or go Canarsie and start to go south, you've still got some opportunity there, some challenges. Coney Island, I like to talk a lot about Coney Island. It was the first people's playground.
Yeah.
Where just everyday working class folks can come and enjoy amusements, parks, and food, and Nathan's hot dogs, and the beach, and so forth. But it's very seasonal, and it's as a consumer, as a customer, it's great. But think about how the season ends, and then people who are working in that seasonal economy, like what do they do next, or what do they do for the rest of the year? So you still have sort of these entrenched challenges in Coney Island. I think there's opportunity for some bigger picture thinking. Look, there's a casino proposal that has for Coney Island that there's going to be 3 full service casinos downstate. Downstate includes Westchester, it includes Nassau County, Suffolk County, and the city. The good news from a Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce was that there's only one proposal for Brooklyn. So I get to wave the Brooklyn flag around the one proposal. I to be in Coney Island, which I think is the right place to do it. And it's not just about a casino, though. And this is the part that I wish people would understand. It's a casino. It's a hotel. It's an indoor entertainment venue where you can host conventions and other events.
Right. And concerts and stuff like that you could only do seasonally in Coney Island, right?
And it's 12 months a year.
Yes.
And that's why I think it could be transformative. And that's the type of big picture economic development thinking that we hope to see in the future. The other big project is one on the transportation side, the Interborough Express, which use the old freight rail lines and that cut through. If you think about those train tracks that go behind Brooklyn College, all the way from Bay Ridge, all the way up to Queens, actually up to Maspeth, Queens. But it cuts through a part of Brooklyn that doesn't have good train access currently, right? Like southeast parts of Brooklyn, and parts of East New York and so forth. So transportation matters, especially public transportation.
You see how transformative it was in Red Hook. Like there was a time you couldn't get to Red Hook. And having IKEA come out there and all the other investments, people now go to Red Hook on purpose. They want to go to Red Hook. Yeah. When I worked in the DA's office, folk were like, "I'm not going to Red Hook," but transportation matter. You're able to get there now easier.
So and it's a good thing. I'm glad you mentioned Red Hook. And we have a fully functioning ferry system too. I mean,
absolutely.
People can take the ferry even in the wintertime. It's like we have much more mild winters than we had when I was a kid, right? When we were kids, we actually had snow and freezing days. We don't get as much of that anymore. So
but now the kids don't get snow days. So now go figure, right? It's virtual.
That feeling of getting up in the morning and looking out the window and hearing on the TV that your school is closed. Our kids will never experience that anymore. Virtual school days.
Exactly. Now you got school. It's virtual. So these are some great initiatives around the County of Kings that you talked about. One of the things that always come up on this show, Randy, is access to capital. Right. Access to capital. Every time I bring a small business on or I talk to them or I'm doing business consulting, it's always the access to capital that seems to be the biggest hiccup. And I think for a business, what do you do to encourage? And I mean, you guys have a CDFI, so you're a little more unique and you're strategic, and you also have all the partnerships with Lisk and Lendustry and True Fund and all these other non-traditional banks and with banks. So you guys are a little different. So talk to us a little bit about that, because I know access to capital still seems to be one of the number one barriers for small business.
We're in a good position to make the match if the match.
That's right.
If the match is makeable.
The match is makeable.
I don't know. I was blanking before. It's Community Development Financial Institute, CDFI. We throw it around as CDFI, but that's really what it is. It's called Brooklyn Alliance Capital. Stevens and Joseph is our finance guy. Let me give you let me give a business or potential business the tips before they approach any lender, whether it's a CDFI, whether it's a community bank, or whether it's a bank itself.
And then full disclosure, we had Niall Stewart on last, and he talked about it too. So that's why this brings it into this. Okay.
So don't assume, even if it's just the CDFI, that there's going to be less of a stringent underwriting criteria. Underwriting is underwriting, and we did pioneer a character-based lending program through COVID in partnership with the Social Justice Fund and the Joe and Clara Sy Foundation, and we're looking at ways to advance that model, but you need to be prepared if you're going to approach a lender, right?
That's right.
Includes your business plan. It includes your financials, excuse me, your P&L, and it includes your own personal financial situation as it relates to your credit worthiness, right?
That's right.
If excuse me, 1 second.
Niall and I, we talked about the things on our last show, because we wanted people to be prepared. We also talked about business credit versus personal credit. They're still looking at your personal credit. That's right. So some people are really confused about that, but now I've really got into it. So go ahead.
So for some people, it's about how do I address some of the credit history before I even approach a lender.
That's right.
For others, it's like, how do I refine my business plan before I get before a lender? I mean, you know this, you teach this, but
right, absolutely.
The other thing I will say is, we have a business basics course that we teach through the Business Solution Center, but and anyone could access that. It's a free course, 8-week course. But before you make an investment of your own personal time and resources, prepare.
That's right. Preparation.
Preparation is the key.
That's right.
And it's work. It's work. You can't do it fly by night. And we have resources here at the Chamber to help you. We certainly can support you through the Business Solution Center, but put in the legwork up front before you actually think about the financing piece. Financing piece comes at the back end. You know this. Right. It doesn't come at the front end. And your personal credit does really matter. And also, like, sit down with someone like a Stevenson who can counsel you about how much you might be eligible for, but how much do you really need? Like that's a
difference. Yeah.
Two different pieces, right?
Right.
Don't take on more debt than you need. Now bake in the cushion in your business plan, but don't take on more debt than you need, right? Because why pay a premium on someone else's capital on money that you ultimately are not going to need?
That's right.
So these are some things that we encourage some of our lenders, but there's a lot more. Like, one barrier that's not as prevalent anymore is access via sort of technology, right? So the fintechs, the PayPals of the world, and others got into the lending game during COVID, right?
That's right.
And so beyond just traditional banks and CDFIs, you also have fintechs that have been helping small
Lendustry is actually a fintech.
Yeah, and Lendustry has a good platform too. So, for those of you who are more tech savvy, or those of you who really rely on, your smartphone, like, you have access to in a different way, and you should leverage that or explore that as a potential option as well.
Oh my God, I can't believe the time is that. Randy, I'm going to have to get you to come back on. So I want to thank you for really sharing all the wonderful things that the Brooklyn Chamber is doing. I encourage anyone that's listening to please go on to the Brooklyn Chamber's website to get more information about what's going on. Go on to brooklynmadestore.com to purchase. Holiday season is here. They're unique products. They're Brooklyn made. So that's a great opportunity to do that. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, the Brooklyn Chamber's website is brooklynchamber.com. So spell out brooklynchamber.com.
Mhm.
Shop local. That's
That's
I always
it.
end with it. Shop local, support your local small businesses. It really does have a multiplying effect in the local economy, right? So if you're supporting a small business in your neighborhood, in your community, on your commercial corridor, that's someone who lives in the neighborhood. That's someone who then will take that and reinvest in jobs and other economic opportunities. So
Absolutely. So shop local, support your business, get ready, be ready so you don't have to get ready. And more importantly, know your financials, know your numbers, and tag in the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce if you have any questions or concerns. So thank you, Rady, for being a part of the Coaxum Report. And I look forward to having you back on. Enjoy your holiday
holidays.
season.
Happy
I'll see
holidays.
you next week, actually. Take care.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
I used to watch BET, MTV, VH1, now I watch Tempo. Soca, Calypso, reggae dance hall. Don't stall, better get tuned in to the tempo. Don't have cable, they got an app. Go to your app store, download that. Whether it's tourism, cuisine, or the social scenes, if it ain't Tempo, it's a rap. Who got the Caribbean views? Tempo. It's the latest in Caribbean news. Tempo. You tryna cook Caribbean food? Tempo. You know they got the music videos too. Tempo. Who got the Caribbean views? Tempo. It's the latest in Caribbean news. Tempo. You tryna cook Caribbean food? Tempo. You know they got the music videos too. Tempo.
The SETI Case 2023 USVI Winter Economic Summit will host business leaders of strategic partners from both the private and public sectors industry on December 7th to the 10th. The Winter Economic Summit will bring leaders together to discuss diversifying the U.S. Virgin Islands economy to foster better international trade, commerce, capital markets, foreign direct investments, leveraging innovative technology to improve public infrastructure, building an integrated, robust tech sector, bringing thought leaders from academia and knowledge-based sector for research and development in the Americas, the Caribbean, and globally. You're invited to attend and participate and be at the Economic Roundtable to determine and to better align the U.S. Virgin Islands economy for the future. Register now at www.wintersummit.us.
For 10 years, the Survey of Household Economics and Decision-Making has tracked the economic well-being and financial conditions reported by U.S. adults and their families. The survey collects data on how people feel about their family's finances to help understand the effects of broader economic trends over time. Conducted in October 2022, the latest survey reveals that 73% of adults were doing at least okay financially, meaning they reported either doing okay or living comfortably. The share of adults doing at least okay financially in 2022 was down 5 percentage points from 2021 and was among the lowest observed since 2016. This decline in well-being aligns with broader economic conditions during fall 2022, including inflation and stock market declines. In economically challenging times, relatively small, unexpected expenses such as a car repair or a modest medical bill can be a hardship for many families. When faced with a hypothetical expense of $400, 63% of all adults in 2022 said they would have covered it exclusively using cash, savings, or a credit card paid off at the next statement, referred to altogether as cash or its equivalent. The share who would pay using cash or its equivalent was down 5 percentage points from 2021 and back at its 2019 level. Consistent with widespread experience of higher prices in the prior year, most adults said that price increases had affected their family budget. Adults with incomes under $100,000 were more likely to say their family budget was affected a lot by rising prices, compared to adults with higher incomes. Black and Hispanic adults Parents living with children under 18 and those with a disability were also more likely to indicate that their budget had been affected a lot by higher prices. Most people took action in response to higher prices, especially through changing spending. The most common adjustments were using less or stopping using products, as well as switching to cheaper alternatives. Just above 1/2 of respondents reduced savings. Increasing borrowing, working more, and asking for a raise were less common strategies. These survey findings provide insight into the wide range of financial opportunities and challenges facing U.S. families at the time of the survey. More information is available in the report on the economic well-being of U.S. households in 2022. To view or download this year's full report and downloadable survey data, visit federalreserve.gov/consumerscommunities/shed.